Hey everyone, so I did a video on Facebook yesterday addressing the video that's been going around about all of the dead cattle in the Southwest Kansas feedlot, and got a whole bunch of comments on it, learned a few more things, and so this video is the YouTube version of that video where I'm going to respond to what happened with my perspective and some context on maybe what could have killed those cattle. So the video in question is a video in Southwest Kansas, a feedlot. Like 2,000 or 3,000 head died on that feedlot in one day, overnight. And so there's been a number going around of 10,000, but that number is across the entire state of Kansas. So, and that number is much less suspicious. That 10,000 head across the entire state of Kansas due to a weather event is not out of the ordinary. We have 2.4 million cattle in Kansas, so that 10,000 number is not suspicious to me. The 3,000 head I was definitely suspicious of, and wanted to look more into it, and obviously a lot of other people are suspicious about it, as you should be. There's lots of things to be suspicious of in this day and age, and we definitely need to be asking questions. However, a lot of people are kind of need to step back off the ledge a little bit, because I do think there was some reasonable explanations for what went on to kill those cattle. So first of all, Southwest Kansas is known for its low humidity. It almost always has wind. The climate is very favorable to raising and feeding cattle. That is why there are so many huge feedlots down there. It is ideal for raising feedlot cattle, especially fat cattle that are about to go to slaughter. Those were the cattle that died. They're big, big animals they've been fattened, and so that's part of why they were susceptible, is because of how big they were. When cattle get that big right at the end of their lives, they are susceptible to heat for sure. So that's part of it. The other part of it is that Southwest Kansas had not experienced normal weather at all. We have had a dry spell, and I'm in central Kansas. I'm not in Southwest Kansas, but there's some similarities. We have had 8 months of dry weather. If you've been following this YouTube channel, we didn't get hardly any rain. There has been no humidity for 8 months, and there has been little rainfall. And all of these cattle that were at that feedlot, they were not used to humidity, and they were not used to high temperatures either, because it's been a pretty cool May and into June. It was pretty cool, and then we started getting rainfall, and we also started getting humidity, and so that, I think, is what made the cattle susceptible to dying. However, heat and humidity do not kill cattle. All around the United States, you have cattle in very harsh climates, very, 110 degrees in Arizona. You got cattle in humidity in the east. It's not so much heat and humidity that kill cattle, it's change in heat and humidity. And as I said before, there was a change in what had been going on in Southwest Kansas, and that's what made the cattle susceptible. Now, for 3,000 head in one feedlot to die in a single night is still pretty unbelievable, and I've seen that in a lot of comments. My theory on what happened is that there was a heat burst. I saw it tweeted a couple nights ago. There was a heat burst in Southwest Kansas, and a heat burst is a weather phenomenon, and it is not widespread. It happens in very small pockets, and it happens after a thunderstorm rolls through, which that had happened that night. And it's a weather phenomenon, so this rarely happens. This was a crazy event. It's like a tornado hitting a feedlot. It's no different. And the temperature jumped from being in the 80s. This was after dark. It jumped from being in the 80s to being over 100 degrees at midnight. In the dark, it was over 100 degrees. And if you think about what that would do to cattle, if you think about what that would do to livestock, it would be very hard for for cattle to go through a hot day, all the way through the day, and then their bodies are stressed, they're tired, they're susceptible. They need the cool night to cool off, and sometimes that's all that's keeping cattle from dying when it's that hot, and there's been that much change is the being able to cool off at night. Well, just as they thought they were cooling off, their systems thought that they were going to get a break, that temperature shot back to over 100 degrees. I think that's what killed those cattle. I don't know for sure, and we probably won't find out for a couple days, but everyone is jumping to conclusions and saying that, oh, this wasn't heat, this was this was somebody poisoned the cattle, or this is the government's attempt to control the food supply. And I'm not saying you shouldn't ask those questions, but what I'm saying is that the evidence points to it most likely being heat. The animal health index going into this week was the worst it has been in 10-20 years. We knew that animals were susceptible. Now on our farm we didn't lose cattle, but that's because we didn't have those heat bursts. But across the entire state of Kansas, 10,000 head died. So this hit other places too, but it's very rare that you see more than a few head die at each farm. It's very rare that you see thousands of head die at a single farm. And so that's where my heat burst theory comes in. But as far as these wild ideas go, I understand that there's been food processing plants that have gone down. I understand that there's a lot of reason for concern, and that we should all be keeping our eyes open and asking questions. I'm not telling you guys to quit doing that. What I'm saying is that in this case, with this story, to me as a Kansas cattle farmer, knowing the context of higher humidity than those cattle were used to, no wind that night. Southwest Kansas almost always has wind. There was no wind that night. These were Black Angus fat cattle, very susceptible to heat changes like that. And all those factors, the evidence points that these cattle were susceptible to heat stress. And on top of that, those heat bursts that happen that are very rare, we hardly ever see those, but they were confirmed heat bursts in Southwest Kansas. All of that points to this being heat stress, okay? And you can not believe me if you want, but that is my theory, and that is what I think happened. And as far as animal welfare goes, people are saying it's the farmer's fault. They should have taken better care of their animals. All these things I'm talking about, that hasn't happened over the last 20, 30 years, all those things at the same time. And a heat burst is like a tornado. It's something you can't really prepare for. We don't build our houses underground to keep from getting hit by a tornado, okay? When a tornado hits, and it's very rare that you get hit by a tornado. I've never even been around a tornado. I lived in Kansas my whole life. When something like that happens, you have to accept the consequences, and it's very sad. It's tragic. These farmers who lost thousands of head are devastated financially, mentally, emotionally. It's terrible. We put our livelihood are these cattle. We take care of them because they're worth $2,000 a head. You do not want to lose one. You do not want one to die. There's zero reason for us to not pursue animal comfort. But all these people saying, well, they should have been inside, are the same people who are saying cattle shouldn't be kept inside. They need to be out in the free range, the open grass. Well, with these microbursts or these heat bursts, I don't think it would have mattered if they were in open grass, if they were in the feedlot. That's a weather phenomenon. And so if you'd like to learn a little bit more about what cattle farmers do for animals, what animal welfare means, what it looks like, I've written a blog that I'm going to include in the caption of this video. And then if you'd like to stay informed maybe about this situation, on our Facebook page, I'm going to be posting updates of what I learned, what I find. But for the most part, this is what I think happened, okay? And there's certainly reason for concern with our food supply and with our government and with corruption and with all these different things. There's certainly room for concern, but in this particular situation, I do not think that foul play was the reason for all these animals dying. So I'm sure you guys will have lots of things to say in the comments, but just remember that this is my perspective. I live in Kansas, I'm a cattle farmer, and I've looked into the context of this video. If all you've seen is the 13-second video and you have no other context and no other expertise, just stop and think for a minute. Maybe I should look more into this. And yeah, that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching.